Hello and welcome to another ARCHLine.XP online webinar course. My name is Zoltán Tud. I'm your average CAD and modeling enthusiast. I'm representing ARCHLine.XP, and today I'm going to show you the very basics of how to use our interior design and architectural software. Now, yesterday we looked at a very clean and modern and beautiful living room model, which was an sort of introduction to how to do interior design with ARCHLine.XP. Today we are going to circle back a little bit and we are going to look at the very basics. So how to draw lines, walls, openings, doors and windows, how to use furniture pieces, and how to position dimensioning. If you have no knowledge of ARCHLine or no knowledge of CAD whatsoever, this is the way to start. So this is how do we get started. And from here we are going to gradually work our way back to doing something like this. But today would be mostly about creating a very simple yet effective example through which I'm going to show you what CAD actually is. The software I'm going to use is ARCHLine.XP, BIM design software for architectural and interior design purposes. So if you don't know any CAD, like I mentioned before, don't despair, I'm going to explain you everything you need to know. So the drawing we are going to put together is this. This is going to be a very simple representation of a building. A couple of walls with varying thicknesses, some dimensioning, some objects here and there. Nothing fancy, but this would be showing you all the basics you need to know. If you have missed any of our shows before, I suggest you take a look at our webinar archives, which are on our website www.archlinexp.com/webinars. And there you can find all the upcoming shows. This is what we have right now, and all the other shows which are coming. The earlier shows we had, for example, last week I had a very nice presentation about architectural use of our software, and also you can download the files and the webinar course guide, what I would be using during the show. So if you want to follow along, this is where you can find this content, or you can find it in the video description. Now, let's jump back into it. So this is where we want to go, and let's just open up a new project so that way we can start from scratch. By the way, if you have any questions about what I'm showing you right now, you can ask them in the chat bar, and at the end we are going to cover the answers to these questions. Now I see that many of you are checking in, saying hi to me, hi to you as well. There where you said hi, you can ask your questions. Okay, so what do we do here? Let's just circle back and investigate ARCHLine with a fresh eye. First of all, we have a huge space over here in which I can do my drawing. I have a content library on the left where I can see all the objects and materials and whatnot, and up here I have the toolbars. Now, you know, without going through and explaining each and every tool what it does, because there's like a million of them, just like in any other CAD or BIM software, I'm going to show you them in action. Now, what is the first unit of working in a drawing software? What is the smallest thing you can think of? That's right, that would be a point, but the point is not that much to see. So instead, we are going to start drawing with lines. Now, if you want to draw anything in ARCHLine, there are two ways to do it. You either go to the toolbar, find the tool that you're looking for, click on it, and then you can draw. Or if you are going from a CAD background and you have experience, you can type in a comment for that. It's going to be line, for example, and then you can draw with a line. Okay, so what do we do? First, we have to click a starting point, and then we have to move our cursor to the direction into which I want to draw my line. Let's say I want to have a horizontal line like this big. And I want to have another one like this, and another one like that. Okay, so let's use this knowledge of ours and draw a rectangle. Now, if you want to finish the tool that you have just used, you can hit the escape button, and if you want to open this tool back again, you just have to right click, use the last command, or just go to the toolbar and find the command over there. So again, right click and last command, it's going to be a line. Okay, let's make an exercise over here. I want to create a rectangle, which is, let's say, 4000 millimeters in every direction. What I do is I start to pull my cursor like this, and instead of trying to find the 5000 mark with my cursor, which is impossible, I'm just going to type in the value 5000. There you go. And then what do I do? I move my cursor, and if I do it vertically, then the software would snap my cursor to a vertical axis, and then I can just type in the value again, 5000. There you go. Now I'm just going to make another line, but I don't have to type in the value this time. I can snap to this point over here. What is snapping? Snapping is actually a drawing aid. If I hover my mouse over this point long enough, then this axis would appear, and then I can just click to the point where I want to draw. So this is how you can create a rectangle. There are obviously easier ways to do it, but that explains you the drawing basics. Now, what happens if I want to create a circle? For that, we have a tool again. You just have to pick a starting point, and you just have to create a circle with the radius. Now, if I want to snap to this, for example, I can do that just fine. So in our software, there are snapping options, and if you're coming from a CAD background, you would understand what these things do. But the point is that the snapping options can be set up similarly to any other CAD software packages. So if you want to, for example, make a line parallel with some other lines, then this is where you can find these elements. But this is not something a beginner should know. But I just wanted to mention that. Okay, so let's draw a few more circles, like one here and another one there. And let's say that we have quite a few drawing elements, and I want to select them. Selection works like this. Hover your mouse over the thing you want to select and click. Now this is just one side of the rectangle. What happens if I want to select all 4 of them? What I do is I hit the Control key and just keep on clicking on the elements I want to select, and then I have the whole thing selected. If I want to move it, I just click on the moving marker and move it somewhere else. Now, if I want to select circles, for example, the same thing, just hit the Control key and click on the elements you want to select. Now, this is where the selection rectangle comes into the picture. If you click your mouse button and hold it and pull your cursor, then you see that there's a selection rectangle. But if you do the same thing into the opposite side, you see that the rectangle is having a different color. Now, what does that mean? It means that you can select things 2 ways. If you do the blue selection rectangle all the way to this point, then you see that only those elements which are fully encompassed with the rectangle would be selected, like so. But if you use the green one, then all the elements which are merely touching the selection rectangle will be selected, like here. Let's do it like this. So only, if you see the circle over here, only the left hand side is touching the rectangle, but still it's going to be selected. All the elements which are going out of the rectangle would be selected as well. So these are just very basic things, but these would be the things that we will be showing during the show. If you want to delete something, click on it, hit the delete key, or just hit this X over here. So these are the very, very basics. I just wanted to clarify these things because we are going to make extensive use of these elements. And now let's create something, more interesting. Let's create buildings. How do we get started? First of all, I'm going to use millimeters as a unit. If you want to change that to something else, you have to go to the settings, units and angles, and here you can set something up. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to use millimeters for now. Okay, so if you want to change it, you can do it there, but I'm just going to use it in millimeters. What do? We want to create this thing over here. So how do we do that? By the way, this is what I'm showing you is the tutorial what you can download. So follow along once you have downloaded it. So we go to building and we start creating a wall. Now, a wall is much like a line, only this one has thickness and height because we are talking about the 3D software, right? So it has to have thickness. If you right click and go to properties, you can set up these elements. You can say that this wall should be 2700 millimeters and the thickness is 380. I think that is fine. Hit OK, click on the wall icon, and here's what we do. We select a point where we want to draw the wall from, and we sort of give it a direction. So I want to go from south to north, and the distance should be 7,500. Okay, here's what happened. Once you have drawn the first item, you have an additional 3D window opening up. And there's a few differences in terms of navigation between the two, so let me just show you. So first of all, we have a 2D here. If you scroll in, you zoom in. If you scroll out, you zoom out. If you push the scroll key and move your scroll around or mouse around, then the drawing will be panned. In the 3D, on the other hand, if you activate the 3D by clicking on it, you can click on this button over here, which magnifies the drawing. You can scroll out to zoom out, scroll in to zoom in. And if you hold the scroll wheel and the shift key, then you can orbit around your model like that. So again, select the 2D, magnify it, and let's carry on with our work. Like so, we are just going to open up again the wall menu and draw the wall like this. It's going to be, let me just use the cheat sheet. It's going to be 5,000 millimeters. And now we go again south, which is for the distance of 4,400. And another distance would be 3,500. And then we go south again. and that is going to be 5,200. And lastly, we have penultimate wall here for 6,400. And then I have a gap over here. So how do I bridge that? I just have to put my mouse over there, let it snap to the wall corner. And here I have the first several walls. Okay, here's one problem I do not particularly like. The insides are brownish, the outside is white. So how do I change that? I select the whole drawing. Remember the selection rectangle? Now this is where it comes handy. And now the software tells me in this property grid that these are the elements I have selected. And I see that the finish face exterior is brownish. I want to change that. So I'm just clicking on this button and change it to something else, bright white. And there we go. Now all my walls are white. Next thing I have to do, I have to have some partition walls. Partition walls are actually drawn with the same way, but there's one difference. Thickness will be different. It should be 100 millimeters. So what do? We go to wall, right click, open up the property grid, and in the property you can sorry, I just opened up the browser instead. In the property grid you can change the thickness to 100 millimeters, and from now on we are going to draw with this. I'm just going to change the texture as well by linking these two together. So now I'm going to have a 2700 high wall, 100 millimeters thick, white on both sides. So what do? I want to have a partition wall over here. I'm just going to hit the wall icon and start a drawing point, but here's something weird and funny. If I draw the wall like this, it's not going to line up with my wall corner. So what do? I have to switch the reference line. The reference line is, or the line should stay where it is. That's the blue line I'm drawing, but the wall in relation to the line has to be flipped. And I can do that either with this palette of menus, so just click on the one which you actually need, or you can just hit the F5 key and then the wall should move where it's supposed to be. So here we go. We just created one wall over there. You see in the 3D, it appears automatically. The next task is a bit trickier though. I want to have a partition wall which is going to be on the in here, but it's not snapped to any of these corners. It's actually, the distance is 2400 from this corner. So how do I do that? There's a tool for that. Select the wall that you want to work with, and down here you see a reference point tool. What this does is that you click on one of the points from where you want to measure. So you want to say this is 2400 from that point on the right. Hit enter and then you can draw. So with this very simple tool you can override where your wall is going to be positioned, because if I just hover my mouse, you see that weird values appear, 7,300 and something. Where is this information coming from? It's coming from the project origin. This is where the 0 is, and everything is made in relation to that, because now we are working with sort of global parameters. But if I click on the reference, I can override where this reference is going to be taken from. So that's very important. One thing, now the wall connections are good, but let's assume that you have a much more complicated drawing than that, and you have wall connections which are not getting together. So let's say you have two walls like this and another two sets of walls like that. So if you, again, I have to have another wall here. So if you want to have an L connection connecting these walls together, what you can do is that you can click on the wall and extend its length, but the very interesting and easy way to do it is to do it with these menus. L connection, for example, I just click on this, click on one of the walls, click on the other walls, and then the two walls are going to be extended. If I want to have a T connection, then I use the same tool, only this time it's going to be a T1, the wall which is going to run into the head of the T. Quick remark here, if you have lines instead of walls, then the tools are different. So if you want to make a T connection between lines, then you have to use these tools, not these ones, but these ones. So you just click on the lines and they would attach. I just wanted to make a quick remark about that. So let's just highlight the whole thing and get rid of it. Okay, so now we have a very basic drawing. One crucial thing is missing, and that is the floor. So how do we create a floor below this? We go to building and find the slab tool. If you right click on the slab, you go to properties, you can fine tune how your slab looks like. I want to change the side material to something else. So it's going to be bright white. But apart from that, this is good enough. So I'm just going to hit OK, go to slab, slab by walls, highlight the whole drawing, hit enter, and the slab is created. Here's something interesting for you who are working in a CAD environment for a long time. You want to know how to change the line weight. If I zoom in, you see that there's a line thickness over here, and you want to know what governs this thickness because you might want to turn this off. If you go to the property grid, here there's a line weight scale button with which you can put the scale to 1:1, or you can crank it up to 1:100 or 1:200. If you are working in a dense drawing, then you might want to turn this into 1:1 or 1:10. Just make sure that it's convenient to work with. Otherwise, you won't see the corners properly. So that's just, I wanted to make that clear. We have been working quite a while now, so it's time to save. And saving is done like so. If you go to File, you have a couple of options. You could save this project with the original name, but I always like to make backup copies with Save As. So what I would do, I just click Save, and I'm just going to say that this is going to be a webinar project 001.pro. That way the file path is changing as well, and that way you can make sure that you have a backup copy. The software does make automated savings, but it's easier to do it manually because then you would know exactly what you have done so far. Okay, so we have the basic drawing, we have the slab, but interestingly the slab has to extend. That's not a problem, I can draw a slab like that, so I'm just going to hit the slab, but interestingly, no matter where I click, I cannot really find the slab. I don't want to select the wall, I want to select the slab, and this is where this jump list comes into the picture. You can drop this menu down and you can find the tool what you're looking for, or you can just toggle these options and do that until the desired element is selected. So click on the element you want to change, hit offset, and we are going to offset this back or outside for 1000 millimeters. And there we go. So we have now a nice sort of terrace for this vestibule. What we do next is that we have to have an additional floor because we want to create a flat roof above this very simple drawing. So what do we do? First, let us get familiar with the floor manager by clicking on this ground floor button. You see that there are 4 levels, 4 floors now. Why? I never created these. Well, you don't have to. The software creates these for you, so it's very convenient. If you want to have additional floors, you don't have to create them, even though you could create additional ones. These are already coming with the project. So this is where we are. And the first floor, we are going to rename that to flat roof. And I want to sort of have another floor above this one, and that is going to be just a flat roof, maybe with some walls around it, so we are not going to fall off. So what do? The easiest way is to select the whole drawing and copy it 1 floor up. And we do that by selecting the whole thing and going to ground floor and clicking on this element over here, copy objects to other floor, and select where you want to copy these things to. Okay, and now you have 2 floors on top of each other. These are carbon copies, 100% accurate copies of each other, but we don't we know that this one is not going to be an actual floor, this is going to be a roof. So select the 3D, magnify it, and select the elements you don't need. Select this wall, hit Ctrl, select the other one, and delete it. Next thing we want to do, we want to make sure that all the walls are the same height. If you select one wall, you can change the height, but you don't want to do that one by one, right? So select the 2D, select the whole drawing. Notice that if you are on the roof floor, then only the roof floor is going to be selected. And go to the selection tab, drop it down, and say that you only want to select the walls and not the slabs. Walls only. And then you can just change the height to 1000 millimeters. And then you have a very nice roof above your tiny vestibule. What do we do after that? I need to have some kind of doors and windows, otherwise there's not going to be enough light and you won't be able to sort of enter the location. So let's proceed with the doors and windows. They are to be found up here, but before we do that, maybe you have already realized I'm still on the roof floor. So if I want to add anything here, then that's not what I want. Hitting the page up and page down keys would navigate between the floors, or you can just use this jump list over here. So I want to make sure I'm on the ground floor, and now comes the door. So the door library can be reached here. Let's just customize it. And I'm going to start with a very simple flush door. The width should be a 900 millimeters, 2100 would be the height, that's fine. Distance from wall line, I have to decrease that. And after that, what I have to do, I have to position it somehow. So I'm just going to click OK. And this is where I want to position it to, but I don't know where I want to position it from. So how do we do that? I click on the door icon and hover my mouse over the wall, and now this green node appears, and the green node tells me that currently my door is going to be 1420 millimeters from the corner on the right. This is a good position, but I want to change it to something else. I want to change it to 950, and if I do that, the software moves my door over there, but my job isn't done because I have to decide on the opening direction, which is going to be like that. Later on you can fine-tune that, don't worry about that. So one door is placed now with the actual properties where it's supposed to be. Now let's move another one here, and that is going to be 2400 from that reference point. But see that is a problem because my reference point is at the bottom, not on the top. So what do? Again, I hit the F5 key, or I just change the reference point from here. So F5 key would move the point to the internal node, or push it again and it goes to the topmost point, and it's going to be 2400. And there we go. Again, decide on the opening direction. This is fine. So now I have two doors over here, and I just realized that I did make a mistake. This should be going into the opposite direction. So what do? We select the door and click on this marker over here. That actually allows me to flip the door or mirror it left and right. So I just did it. I want to mirror it back, so I'm mirroring it, and I want to flip it left right. Here we go. So that's the actual circumstance that we want to create. Okay, how about we create one door over here, and that is going to be a double door. So I'm just going to go to door, and I have a jump list of double doors over here. So I'm just going to hit on the one that I actually need, and I want to add the door over here with its internal reference point. I hit the F5 key to jump to the middle, and now I can snap it to the middle of the wall and add it like that. So this is how you can do it. If you want to change the door's type, for example, then you can do that by jumping into its properties and find something which is I don't know, a bit a bit nicer. So I'm just going to go to the door library over here, and if I know the name of the door, I'm just going to type in double entrance door with mirrors, I think, and I'm just going to use something which is a bit nicer than that, so I'm just going to use that one. So software asks me, do you want to keep the previously set dimensions? I think I want to do that, so I'm just going to do that, and here we go. So that's how you create something a bit nicer, not fancy, but you get the idea. So we are done with the doors. Next thing, we have to take care of the windows. So how do we create a few windows over here and there? Same deal. You just click on the window, right click, and you have to define how large the windows should be. It should be 1500 times 1500, and the sill height is 900. That's fine by me. And now I have to position them. I'm just going to use the cheat sheet to know where I want to position my windows to. They are going to be from this corner 1000 millimeters. So again, I have to hit the F5 key until the node jumps where it's supposed to, and I'm typing in 1000, and here we go. So the window is now created, just like that. So every time you do something, it's going to be happening in the 2D and the 3D as well. So one window is done. Let's have another one. I think this time it should be 1000 from this corner. So again, click on it, hit the F5 key until it moves, and 1000 millimeters from the corner, and there you go. So we have a nice vestibule with a door, two windows, and a couple of internal walls and doors. Next thing what we have to take care of is actually the perspectives. I did talk about this before, but a quick refresher is in order. So what we are working on now is something which we call an axonometric view, which means that no matter how far you are looking at things from, the distances would not get shorter like it would get normally when you look at something. If you zoom in something, you cannot enter the location. No matter how far you are zooming in, you would never be able to enter this. For that, we have a different representation mode, and that is called the perspectives, which can be reached with this eye. Now, when and why you would use perspectives? This is mainly useful when you are working internally in a room or a house. First of all, this is our location. I have to change this representation style to 2D view, so that way we can see the partition walls. This is where I am. This is where I'm looking at, so that's not good. I'm just going to grab onto my viewpoint and move it until I find what I'm looking at. And moving this node, I can move myself inside the location, like that. By clicking on the plus icon, I can record this viewpoint and name it. The name should be vestibule number 1, and I'm just going to make another one, and that is going to be, I'm just moving the viewpoint, moving my view, and that's right. Click, and that is going to be vestibule 02. Now, it's always good to give sequential names or use the alphabetic order, because that's the order the software is going to use the perspectives in. So just make sure you have some kind of ordering convention in here. So let's hit OK. And now you see that you are in perspective. The navigation works the same way, so you can just use the right click and hold and drag to move around and zoom in and zoom out. What is missing over here? I think a couple of dimensions we have to add, because we don't have any. I did promise you that I'm going to show you that. I'm just going to show you that very quickly. I'm not going to go into that much detail, but this is how dimensions are generally added. So let's go to the 2D, zoom out a bit so I have more space, and go to dimension and quick dimension. All I have to do, select the element you want to dimension and move the cursor to position the dimensional line like that. Select the next one, line up, there you go. I think I wanted this one instead. Yeah, there you go. So if I want to select another one, let's say this, I do it like that. So very easy, very simple, and most importantly, these dimensions are in connection with the model. So if you make any changes later on, then the dimensions would comply with the changes. For now, I'm not going to show you that because that would be off topic, but I'm going to have another session which shows you just that. Okay, so why did we even set up these perspectives? That is because we want to create furniture pieces in this drawing. Another thing I haven't showed you is how to navigate between perspectives. That is done with the page up and page down key, or you can just use these elements over here. Okay, so furniture. Where do we get furnitures from? There are certain ways. There's the design center for a start, where you can click on objects and then you can browse the things that you're looking for. Let's say that I want to have 2 armchairs over here in this corner. So what do? I'm just looking for armchair, hit enter, and these are the elements which are in the software. So you don't have to download them, these are already inside the software. Click, drag, and release. And there's going to be one nice chair over here, but I think I need 2. So I'm just going to go into the 2D, enlarge, and click on the element. First, I want to move it. So I'm just going to hit the movement marker and move it somewhere else. And then I want to have another copy over here. Of course, you could go back to Design Center, dragging and dropping it, but that would not teach you how to copy things. So I'm just going to select the element again, click on the selection marker and say move a copy from, and click a starting node and move your copy over here. And then you can have access to the rotation node like this. So now the element is rotated. I think I need a coffee table over here, so I'm just going to say that. Coffee table. I think this one is good. So I'm just going to drag it and drop it. And now I have a very simple setup over here. So this is like a waiting room, a vestibule for maybe a doctor's office or something. So here you can find some time to read some magazines. This is one way to do it. But of course, there are other ways to get things into the system, and these are the external libraries. Now, from the external libraries, there's quite a few. So there's the BIM object library, the largest element of BIM and architectural elements, Synchronia, our own showroom, which I demonstrated yesterday, or the CAD library. But the one I enjoy using the most is the 3D warehouse, which is made and maintained by the US company called Trimble. Now, the 3D warehouse is notorious for having a large amount of user-generated items. This is good, and this is a bit, well, I'm not saying bad, but you have to be very careful about these elements. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say I want to have an armchair in this model. I'm just going to type in armchair, hit enter. Now, there's all kinds of different armchairs, varying in sizes or actually sort of quality. So this one would not do, this one is very nice, but maybe this one is too complicated. So for this reason, there are 2 sort of pre-filters on the left. What does these things do? First of all, in any kind of CAD software, you're always paying for your work in time. And what this means that if you want to render something, then if something is very complicated, something like an object has too many surfaces, then it would take more time to render and use that object. Time means money spent on something else. So what you have to do, you have to be careful about what kind of elements, what kind of objects you are going to be using. So you could potentially download a very heavy element, which is like tons of surfaces, but you probably don't want that because it might be too large for your model and you don't need that kind of complexity. That would take too much time to process. So you have these pre-filters with which you can filter down the physical size of the model, or I mean the number of megabytes it's going to take, or the number of polygons it's going to amass. So the general rule of thumb is to keep this under 50,000 surfaces, because if it's over, then you are going to have way too many surfaces, which would be impossibly long and difficult to render. If you have something in your model which is like a focal point of your design, you could go above this, of course, but if you're just looking for chairs and nominal things, then this is the way to go. So let's keep it simple. I like this armchair. I'm just going to click on it. I see that the polygons, it's not that much, so 2000, that's fine. That's nowhere near the 50,000 mark. And it's half a megabyte, so I think this is good enough. So I'm just going to hit download and say that I want to have this one in my design. And I'm just going to do it like this. I'm just going to make another corner over here, and I want to have another armchair one there, another one there. I'm going to the 2D and rotate this armchair like this. And I'm just going to move it there. Maybe I want to move this one as well out of the doorway, so that way people can move. And yeah, maybe I want to have a coffee table here, maybe I don't, it doesn't really matter. What matters though is that once you have created the outlay that you were looking for, you can create sort of variations of your model. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's say that you want to have one version of your model where you have these two chairs, but you want to have another version of the model where you have these two chairs. So how do we make variations of the model? Well, that is actually where the layers come into the picture. Now, what are layers? Layers are, it's a bit hard to explain, because back in the day when I was a kid, I was in school, and we had this kind of presentations before projectors came along. We had these analog old projectors where the teachers had this see-through foil and they wrote things on it and they could project their writing onto the wall. If the teacher superimposed a couple of foils or layers on top of each other, then all the contents of the layers were visible to us. Let's say a diagram of a flower during biology class, or maybe some kind of chemical reaction illustration or form. We could see all the things, and if the teacher removed a few layers, then those things would be gone from the screen, and then she put back a couple of layers extra, and then we saw all the things. So I'm just saying that because this is how layers work in a CAD software. So let's get familiar with them. If you click on the layer manager over here, then this thing comes up. So this is scary. So when I first saw this, I was like, there's no way I could understand what these things are. So what are these things even? I don't even have decoration and bathroom elements. Why do I have all these layers? Well, let's just first click on the Use Layers tab, and then the site would be a bit less frightening, because I have 4 layers altogether. One called Dimensions, then Interior, Slab, Wall, and these are actually the elements that I have in my model. So I have load-bearing walls, sure. I have a slab, I have furnishing, and I have the dimension lines. That's fine. Let's just close this for a second, and let's introduce another element to this drawing, which is going to be a column. Let's say over here. Once I have positioned this column and I open up my layer manager again, I go to Use Layers, I see that I have another, or I should be having another column. I think it's not on the right. Yeah, it's put to another layer, so it's now on layer number 1. So if I go to my layer manager, I see that now a layer number 1 just appeared, which holds another extra element. So every time you introduce something new to your project, they are going to be put automatically onto layers. Now, why are layers important? That's because you can enable and disable their visibility. For example, you can disable the visibility of all the furnishing pieces, like that, and then everything will be gone from your model, right? Well, not entirely gone, more like invisible. So if I go to the 2D and use this 3D hammer to refresh my 3D, you see that the objects are gone. but they're not entirely gone. They are still there. They are just put onto a layer of which visibility I have currently disabled. So I'm just going to enable it again. I think they are available. Yeah, turn off on again. I think it's yeah. Now I just have to rebuild it. So this is how you can put things onto separate layers. And if I go back to the 2D, I can now see where my elements actually are, because I'm pretty sure that I just made them disappear. Yeah, here we go. I'm just going to make them come back. If you rebuild the 3D, then the objects appear. Now, how do we use this to our advantage? Now, what I can do, I can make a layer group onto which these elements are used. Let me just rebuild the 3D again, because yeah. This is actually very funny that the elements are not appearing. Let me just do something. I'm just highlighting all the content which are not to be found in the 3D, like this. Yeah, like that. Yeah, I think I know why that is. See, this is something I also wanted to show you, but I wanted to do it at a later stage. So every layer has two settings. One is the visibility and the other one is the editability. This padlock shows you what are the things that you can edit. So if you have the elements like this, then they are going to be shown, but you can't access them anyhow. So you just have to go back to the layer manager and turn on the visibility of these layers, and then you will be scot-free. Now, see, the elements are back. So I want to have one variation of the room when I have these things. I want to have another variation when I have these two chairs. So what do? I go to my layer manager, go to all layers. Again, don't get scared about these whole things. Now they are making sense, right? So these are just all the other layer possibilities you have. Again, disable and enable the visibility and turn on and off the editability. So what we are looking to do is now we are looking to create two additional layers, which I can do with this button over here. And if I do that, I have layer number 1. I want to name it vestibule version 1. Hit OK. I want to have another layer, and that is called vestibule version 2. Okay, this is done. If I go to V, then I have them. Okay, hit OK. And now I'm just going to select my elements with the control click. Again, this is very useful. And I go to the, let me just enlarge this. I go to the layer manager over here. I see that these elements are belonging to an interior living room layer, but all the other elements do. So I have to click on the layer manager and find my vestibule layer. And I'm going to put this as version number 1. And I'm going to select these two elements, 1 and 2, and these are going to be vestibule number 2. Okay. And what happens now? Let me just put this back to small. I don't need it too large, so I'm just going to make it like that. If I use the layer walk, for example, that I can turn on and off the visibility of the versions I want to work with. So let's say I want to visualize version number 1. Let's hit OK. Hit the 3D hammer, and what happens is that version number 2 is gone. But if I go back to the floor plan and I enable the visibility of version number 2 and disable number 1, and if I click to 3D now, then this appears. So this is how you can sort of create furnishing variations, but this could be applied to any other uses. So use the layers, get familiar with them, because the more time you spend with them and get to know them, you would find that they are very, very close friends, and you don't have to get scared by them. They're going to be your friends in the long run. So I have mentioned the 3D hammer several times down here. I think now it's time to talk about this in detail. So what it does. Generally speaking, whenever you do something in ARCHLine, the 2D and the 3D are synchronized. So things happen simultaneously. So if I move into the 2D and move this chair over here, for example, then you see that in the 2D and the 3D things happen simultaneously. Similarly, most transactional things can be done in the 3D as well. So if you prefer working in 3D, that's fine. There are certain scenarios when the 2D and 3D are not linked automatically, and you have manual control over when and how you want to update the 3D. Why is that? That is because if the software would always update the 3D, then it would take too much processing power. So you can sort of enable and disable the 3D whenever you need it. One good example is when you are actually creating several variations, like I'm pulling back number 2, the number 1 variation. See, now it's not in sync. So if I click on the 3D hammer, it is in sync. So the 3D hammer is actually rebuilding the 3D based on what is actually visualized in the 2D. One other example, if I click on only this chair and I hit the 3D hammer, then only the chair is going to be visualized, which is very good if you have a smaller detail you want to work with. Hit the 3D hammer again and the whole floor plan is going to be visualized. There are some other things it can do on the other hand. Let's say that I want to create like a cutaway model of this location. Before I do that, I click on the representation style over here and I go back to axonometry, just like that. And let's say I want to have like a cut like this one. So how do I do that? I select the 2D and I click on the 3D hammer and I say create a cutaway view. I select the rectangle and then the software says I'm just going to chop this down to 2 pieces. Is the other side gone? Well, from the 3D it is, but it's not entirely gone. It can be rebuilt anytime. So I'm just going to go back to the quick 3D and the model is rebuilt while the selection rectangle stays there. So if you ever want to regenerate the 3D section, you can just click on it and it's going to be regenerated. So that is a very easy way to sort of only visualize the things that you want to work with. Everything else can go. So you don't have to have the whole thing projected. Let's go back to this menu. Let's go back to build 3D model. And here you can define what and how you want to rebuild. If you want to build a model without any doors and windows, if you want to make the wall framing visibility, or if you want to just build this current one floor and I don't want to have the other floor. How do I do that? I do this and the slab, the second floor is actually gone. So by playing around with these 3D rebuild options, you can find that it's very flexible how you can manage your content. Just visualize the things that you actually want to show. A few things I haven't mentioned is the representation styles. If you click on this button, you can click on if you want to have a consistent color scheme or you want to have a realistic one. Now, what does the realistic mean? It means that if you find two faces which have the same material but they are in a different row, that the colors will be different because in reality this surface would seem different as this one. So this is better for realistic representation, but if you want to get the colors right, try to use it in consistent color. Just a reminder, in this one, if you want to have a sort of like a paper cut model, you have abilities over there. If you want to have a wireframe like a see-through vision, then you have that. I like to use the consistent color because that just gives you a better representation. And if you use this one, this is very good, underlay floor plan, then you have a very nice floor plan representation under the model, which you can even offset. So that way you have a nice sort of X-ray version of the model and also the floor plan. So this is very good for client presentations. This way you can show them how your project is going to look like. Okay, so that is actually what I wanted to discuss during this session, and I think there's some time for some questions. So let's just review them. Until I do, feel free to ask more questions. Okay, here's one interesting. I was drawing with numerical input. But the question was, can you snap the wall to the origin? Yes, you can. You can snap that, and you can snap other things as well. So if you go with the, let's say, with a drafting tool and hit line, and type in 0, 0, then you are going to snap to the origin like that. So that's how you can do that. For those of you who are not new to CAD and you already know what this thing is, you are able to relocate the project origin. How is that done? You go to edit and move, and this is advanced stuff. So for those of you beginners, you don't have to do this, but you would need to know at a later stage how that is done. So if you say relocate project origin, you can just click on the point. Let's say I want to have the project origin over there, then the origin is reset. So if I now open up the drafting tool and I say 0, 0, then it's going to be, I'm sorry, I managed to type something else, 0, 0, then it's going to be drawn from that point on. If you want to reset the project origin, then you can do that by edit and move and restore project origin, and it goes back to where it came from. Another question, is there any shortcut for changing orientation of the wall or for other elements? Yes, there is. If you want to create something, let's say a wall, and you start drawing things, then you can use the F5 key to toggle where the element is going to be positioned, or you can use this jump list, right side, left side, and that way you can draw these elements. So I hope that clears things up. I'm just reviewing. Looks like it was a very understandable presentation because there are no other questions, which I'm happy about. Usually your questions are keeping the presentation much more interesting because then it's much more relevant. What we are going to talk about next time is going to be a bit more spectacular. That is going to be bathroom design. Now, what do we mean by that? We mean tiling. We mean layouts, quantity takeoffs, number of cut tiles or bathroom appliances, how to use, let's say, a unit like this one or that one, or how do we create a mirror, or maybe some other elements and objects as well. Or, interestingly, if you look here, mosaic tiling is another thing that we are going to talk about. So next time, which is going to be next Monday, we are looking at how to create a bathroom design from the bare model all the way to visualization and quantity takeoffs. Until then, I suggest you look at our webinar archives and sign up for the upcoming shows as well. You can download the files, what I was using during the show, and you can download the course guide as well. Look at the other shows which are coming, and look at the older shows we did, or I did, last week or the weeks before. If you are new to ARCHLine and you want to find out more about it, you can go to the products page and find out more details about ARCHLine.XP or ARCHLine.XP Live or LT, our 3 products. If you want to consult the pricing chart, then you can do that here. And most importantly, you can go for a free trial from our website. 30 days is for everybody, so you can download and try the 2020 version anytime you want. For now, I would like to thank you for your attention. If you like this presentation, then subscribe to our channel and like this video. There's a question, how to change the orientation after the wall is drawn? Let me just jump back into ARCHLine because this is a very interesting question. I'm not sure I would be able to find it right away, but let me just do a try because I'm pretty sure it can be done. It's just a question of how to do it. So once you have created a wall, you could flip it with the mirror tool, with this over here. So if you select a wall, go to the mirror tool, and then it mirrors the location in relation to the reference line. Somebody's asking if the next show is going to be tomorrow. Well, tomorrow is Saturday, so on Saturday I would be taking long walks with my family and play with the cats and play some guitar. If you want to listen to that one, I don't blame you. Next time we are going to meet on Monday. Well, please just say that it's Friday. I hope it's not Thursday because I was expecting that it's going to be Friday. On every Friday we have a Pizza Friday, so after the show is over I'm going to hit the pizza place and order something for myself. So if you have any questions, you can keep them coming to my email address, which is info@archline.xp.com, and on Monday I'm going to answer them. So again, reminder, on Monday we are going to talk about bathroom design. Until then, I would like to thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, keep them coming. If you like the video, like it and subscribe to the channel, and see you next time.